So I've pulled my truck into the shop. It's about 20 something degrees outside. It's freezing, but I'm nice and warm in here. I'm going to go ahead and do an intake and a carburetor swap on this thing. Let me go ahead and tell you guys that there is nothing wrong with this 2-barrel besides the fact that it could use a rebuild. Probably hasn't been rebuilt since this thing was new. I mean, it'll run and drive fine, but the problem is it's hard to start, and if you're rounding a turn and you try to give it a little bit of gas to speed back up, it will quit on you almost. So it just has a flat spot and a dead spot in it. If you give it too much throttle when it's going slow, or from a dead stop, if you punch it, it'll quit. It could be fixed if you were to rebuild the carburetor, this 2-barrel, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to go ahead and do everything new. I brought this intake out of the barn. I ran the casting numbers, and this is actually a 1971 340 intake, and I have a brand new Edelbrock 1406 carburetor to go with it. I painted this last night. I cleaned up all the ports, cleaned up all the surfaces for the gaskets. It's still taped up, you can tell from where I painted it, but did that last night to get ready for today. So what I'm going to do first is start tearing everything apart on the truck. That way I can have this thing already ready to go. New Felpro intake gaskets. And I'm going to take the valve cover gaskets off as well, or take the valve covers off and paint them while I'm at it, because they leak, and I figured since I already have them off, I'll just go ahead and paint them while I'm at it. Alright, so I've drained the radiator. I've unbolted the alternator there on the adjustment. Next thing to do is to take off this AC compressor. Like I always say, keep a box of bolts. The compressor is totally unbolted, and one thing that I totally forgot to even think about was this thing being under pressure. Now, I didn't expect it to even have any pressure on it, because when I did my cop car last year, I did the exact same thing, and it had, you know, no pressure on it, so I just unbolted everything. So I just kind of expected that this one would be the same way, but it was under pressure, and whenever I unbolted this part, it just, I mean, it popped out. It scared me to death, but it's fine. I mean, the AC doesn't work anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. Here we go. Now we have all sorts of access to our intake. So there's some hoses taken off. Now, one thing about this truck, when I drive it, no matter how long I'd go, this thing would never warm up. It would warm up enough just to get the heater to warm up, but this thing would never get the operating temperature. And I suspected that there was no thermostat, and I was right. I don't know if you can see that, but they just left the thermostat out of it. Everything has been completely unhooked. The intake is unbolted. Had to remove the distributor to get the back two, as well as the coil. But that's not a big problem, so I'm going to go ahead and try and pop this thing off and see what we can do. Next thing I'll do is lay some paper towels in there in the valley, and then I'll clean up all this gasket off of here, make that a nice surface for the new gasket to be put on. And while I'm at it, I'll take these valve covers off too. So there's the old intake off. It didn't really give me any trouble coming off. The fun part's going to be putting the new one back on. But like I said before, there was really nothing wrong with the 2-barrel. It was just old, and it really needed a rebuild. And if I'm going to spend a lot of time on a carburetor, I'd rather just go ahead and go all out and do a 4-barrel swap. So what I've done, I've hung up the valve covers here. I cleaned out both sides, inside and out, primed it, waited for them to dry. All right, got that first coat of blue on. These won't be perfect whatsoever, but they'll do the job.
Got it. What I do is put my finger.
And we're done. I've installed the intake. It's all bolted down. The Edelbrock's on it. Runs and drives. Valve covers are all bolted in. They don't leak. Also, while I had it apart, I took all these heater hoses and everything, as well as radiator hoses, and put new ones on, because if you remember, the power steering pump and the steering box was leaking and soaked all of these hoses. It made them swell up really bad, which could have caused them to be damaged later on. So while I had it apart, replaced every single one of those. New thermostat, like I mentioned. It runs and drives great. It has so much better throttle response. It runs better, drives better. It's just overall a much better vehicle. One thing you'll notice is that I didn't paint the engine. That's only because I ran out of paint. I cannot find anybody who sells Chrysler Corporation blue and engine paint at any kind of like store or anything around here. So I might have to order me some online. When I do that, I'll paint all up in here, because the compressor on this side, the alternator, covers up most of this. I might go in there and touch up a little bit, but for the most part, if I hit this up, I mean, you never really even be able to tell that the engine wasn't painted before. And I went ahead and took this air cleaner too. We took 2 air cleaners and made them one, cut the bottom out of the original one, the original 2-barrel, and stuck a 4-barrel bottom on it. I'm really impressed by how well it performs and how good it looks, and I'm really excited about it. It makes this truck so much better to drive and just so much more to enjoy. There it is, all said and done, guys. If you like this video, please leave a like down below. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to send in your project. The email's at the very end of the video every time. Don't forget that we're getting really close to 20,000 subscribers, so if you have any ideas you want to see for that, please leave a comment and let me know what you guys want to see. Give you one last look of everything I've done here. I will see you all in the next one.